what's cooking good lookins? My name is Sydney Metter and I am a fangirl. Hey guys, so I worked a lot this week. I am very exhausted and tired, and I can explain this and this because I work at a movie theater and I was bored, so yeah. Look at these! Oh my god! I've collected all of these rubber bands in 3 days of work. Like, every time I open up a new bag of popcorn or something, I collect another one of these. Oh, it's been a busy week. But that is not why I'm here today. Today I am here to talk to you guys about the Battle of the Bastards. Ba 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 ba. Oh my god. So let's start from the very beginning. A very good place to start. Sound of music. Did you get it? No? Okay. At the beginning of the episode, we see Khaleesi being the biggest badass ever. But also, you know, we see her being very, sort of war-minded, which we've seen a lot from her. I saw this article a few weeks ago after she made that speech to the Dothraki, and someone was thinking that maybe that was like the beginning of Daenerys becoming a villain, or becoming her father even. So I was a little bit disappointed and pleased this week when she sort of repeated her dad's ideas of burning cities to the ground. And I think that that proves that Daenerys has a lot more of her father in her than she would like to admit. But that is why I am so unbelievably happy that Tyrion is there. Because while Daenerys is very strong and forward and passionate, you know, full of fire, one might say, no. Tyrion is very into the politics of things. He doesn't really think with his fists, or he doesn't think as someone who has power or thrives for power. And while Daenerys doesn't really want power for selfish reasons necessarily, she definitely is someone who wants to be queen and wants a lot of things and is willing to do whatever she needs to do to get them. And I think that that is very interesting because he can think from a different perspective than Daenerys, and it really makes their relationship vital. It's not even like just nice or good, it's vital. Because when Daenerys tries to take Westeros and when she continues to try to conquer and take over all of these lands, she's going to need Tyrion's guidance. And that is why I'm so happy that he's there. And can I just say, Daenerys gets more badass every week. Like, honestly, those dragons are beautiful. They're beautiful. And Daenerys is so boss. I just can't take her bossness. Her bossness is exploding in like a great fire of awesomeness. And it is consuming the world. I really need to stop with the fire references. It's a problem. And since I'm just on the subject of Daenerys, I might as well just go through all of her scenes before I get to the main event. I was very intrigued by the conversation she had with the Greyjoys. Specifically, the part where she talked about their dads. Every single person in that room had one thing in common. They had horrible parental guidance. I'm really glad that they spoke that connection to the audience because it was there, and I really liked that Daenerys said, we don't want to follow in their footsteps. We want to make the world a better place, not a worse place. Because I think, like I said earlier, she does have some of her dad in her, but I think that need to make things better, to free the imprisoned and to stop injustice is really what sets her apart from her father. And I can only hope that that is what sets all of them apart, and that all of them share this need for justice and creating a greater world with each other. That's it for Daenerys, so let me go ahead and just get on to the battle, because that's what we're all thinking. I took a few notes on my phone during the episode so I knew sort of what order I should talk about things, and to remind myself so I didn't forget stuff, because in a lot of my old videos I forget a lot of stuff and then I think later like, oh, forgot to mention that. But I took a lot of notes, and the first thing I mentioned was Sansa, but I'm gonna just hold that off because I think that I can talk about all of her scenes at once, and I'm gonna save that for the end. So I guess I should just start by saying that that battle was beautiful. Okay, that sounded really bad. I don't mean because a lot of people were killing each other. I'm not a psychotic person. I just meant cinematography-wise, they really did an amazing job. Like, I don't even really know how else to put it. It was just well timed and beautifully shot, and just, oh my god. What can I even say? Like, you all watched that scene. It was incredible. As awful and terrible as the stuff happening in it was, the scene itself, the scenes themselves were beautiful to watch. I know that sounds really bad and I feel really weird saying it, but it's true. And I think we can safely say after this episode that Ramsay Bolton is the worst person to ever come on screen on Game of Thrones. And I don't just mean because of the Rickon thing. When it comes down to the worst characters on Game of Thrones, people always either go to Joffrey or Ramsay. In the first few years of the show, Joffrey was the obvious choice, and then, you know, after he died or after Ramsay was introduced, Ramsay was the obvious choice. And, you know, a lot of people, when given the choice, would say Ramsay. And I don't just think that that is because he's the one that's still alive, well, not anymore, but I think it's because, you know, both of them are psychotic killers that take pleasure in the pain and torturing of other people. But where they differ is Joffrey was just a spoiled little idiot. Joffrey lived a very sheltered life, and he just did whatever seemed like the most violent thing to do or the most humiliating thing for a person to do. He didn't think through these things. But Ramsay is just very clever, and he likes to make it an art. He thinks through everything he does, and he sees how much he can possibly hurt whoever he's trying to hurt, and he does whatever will hurt them the most. And that is why Ramsay is by far worse than Joffrey. And I will say this once and only once in my entire life, so please, please, please listen to what I'm about to say, because none of you will ever hear it again unless you rewatch this video or rewind or whatever. But I will never utter these words more than one time. But props to Peter Baelish. Oh my god, someone get me some soap for my mouth. That was awful. Ugh. I was pretty convinced that Littlefinger was going to come in with his army and save the day. I knew it was going to happen, you know? So ugh, I hate his guts more than like anyone in the whole world, but, you know, props. No. It's once is it. Ugh. So I'm just happy that Jon Snow won, and whatever reinforcements were given to help make that happen were appreciated by me. There we go. So Sansa made that happen, and this is me trying to segue into talking about Sansa, and it failed miserably, so we're just gonna talk about Sansa, okay? So Sansa in this episode was super badass. And when I was watching this episode, I kept thinking how badass she was, and then I was thinking about how that's exactly how I saw Daenerys' scenes. I see them in very similar lights. I don't know if they are similar necessarily, but I see them in similar lights as They're very inspirational to me. They're very strong in my eyes. I look up to them. I think that they're wonderful. And it dawned on me that I have always loved Sansa, but I really think that this is the first time that most people will be saying, wow, Sansa's such a badass, whereas Daenerys, people have been saying that since day one pretty much. This episode for me, and any other Sansa fans out there, was just an... Okay, so my camera stopped recording, so I just stopped mid-sentence, but I'm going to try to continue the thought, and I rambled for a long time, so I'm basically just going to try to summarize all the cool things I was saying about Sansa. What I was trying to say earlier is, for me and anyone else who is a fan of Sansa, this episode was just another example of how strong and brave and amazing she is. But for someone who hasn't always seen Sansa in that way, I hope that they realize at this point how strong she is. Because she stood up and looked her abuser right in the eyes. And she literally just said to him, "You're gonna die tomorrow," and walked off. And I hope that everyone out there realizes, if I were in her shoes, I wouldn't go anywhere near Ramsay. I can't even imagine how terrified she must have been. All of the horrible things he did to her, and she just stood there stone cold, and that is so brave and so strong and so fierce. And to anyone who doesn't think that Sansa is strong or incredible or bold, you are an idiot. And there is no other way I can word that, because it's just true. Sansa is such a good character. And if you don't see that now, you'll never see it, and nothing I can do about that, but I hope you know you're wrong, and I'm right. I really liked how Sansa voiced her opinion with Jon, how she was willing to say that Jon didn't know as much as he thought he did. And I gotta say, this is definitely a lot like the Daenerys and Tyrion thing from earlier, a great comparison. Jon is very war-minded and very strategic, whereas Sansa is a lot closer to the situation, and she's able to look at it from a different perspective. And I think that their conversation mirrored Daenerys and Tyrion's conversation in very interesting ways. There is something I do want to start a conversation about in the comments if anyone else is curious or has an idea or has an opinion about this. I thought it was very interesting in the last scene. It was sort of subtle, but it definitely probably pretty important. Sansa was looking at Ramsay as the dogs started to eat him. Sorry. The dogs started to eat Ramsay, and she started to step a little bit, like she was turning, and then she paused, and then she came back and just kept watching. And I definitely noticed it, and I definitely am curious about it, and am still thinking what that meant. Part of me wants to think that, you know, Sansa endured so much abuse, physical abuse from this guy, you know, why wouldn't she take pleasure in seeing him being tortured, being in pain as she was? And I do agree that Ramsay deserved it so much, and, you know, there's no reason why Sansa shouldn't have stayed there and enjoyed it. I think it is interesting, though, that she made the conscious decision to stay. My question, I guess one of my questions, is I'm trying to think if that's something that Ramsay would do. You know, in movies when there's always the person that wants revenge, and then some really noble character comes in and says, if you kill that person, you're just becoming them, you know? And I was thinking about that when watching that scene and thinking, Ramsey deserves this. She deserves to watch this. But this is something Ramsey would do, isn't it? Or am I misinterpreting the scene? Or is there different ways to interpret the scene? And I'm not saying that she's not a total badass and not completely deserving of whatever she wants to look at when it comes to Ramsey being killed or eaten or whatever. But it was something that the creators of the show decided to do, and it was a conscious decision, and the beautiful, beautiful Sophie Turner did that scene wonderfully. And so I'm wondering, do you guys think that that was a way for her to be similar to Ramsey, or still hung up on it, the terror it caused her, or is that her way of moving on? And then there was the smile at the end. I don't really have thoughts about that scene formed, really. I'm just kind of rambling. So please don't attack me in the comments. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just talking. But I don't know. And I think it is something that would make a good conversation. So if anyone has opinions or views or ideas about that scene, I would really, really like to talk about them with you. I respond to comments 98% of the time, so I promise that if you leave a comment, I will respond to whatever you say, and I am interested in what you have to say about that scene and any other scenes. But I guess this is a good segue into the ending, so I guess I'll just say, comment down below if you have any thoughts about this episode that you want to talk about or discuss, because I really do want to discuss this with someone. That's kind of the point of this channel, is so I can have people to talk to about these things. Give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and go ahead and hit subscribe below if you like what I have to say and you want to hear more. Until next time, peace out, Girl Scouts!